Hi there, my name's Jamie Venezia. I'm from MMRA. We're here to show you another how-to video on how to change your valve springs. I'm going to show you first the tools that we need in order to do the project, and then we'll move on to actually changing the valve springs. So a few simple tools. You'll need a spark plug socket and ratchet. You'll need a small flathead screwdriver that you can stick down into the spark plug hole to make sure the piston is all the way at the top. Then you'll need a 10mm socket and ratchet to take the valve cover off. This other tool is some rope. This is a little big, but it'll still work for us. What we're going to do is we're going to shove that down into the spark plug hole to get it underneath the valves so that we could prop the valves up so it's easier to remove the spring and put the spring back on. So here we have two different springs. This spring here is the Honda 120 spring. It has a yellow stripe, and in the part number it's ZF1. This other spring we have here is a 160 spring, so it has a part number ZE1, and if you look on the spring there is no color designation at all. So what I would do is talk to your engine builder to find out which spring that you want to run in your 120 engine, depending upon which class you're using. If you do run a 160 engine, typically everybody does run the 160 spring in that engine. So I think that's all we need for parts and tools, so let's get started. Alright, we're going to get started here on changing the valve springs. So the first thing we're going to do is pull the spark plug wire off and get that up and out of the way. Next we're going to do is we're going to get our 10mm socket and ratchet, and we're going to take the valve cover off so we can get to our valves. So there's 4 screws that hold the valve cover on, one at each corner. It doesn't matter which order you take them off. Now underneath the valve cover there is a valve cover gasket, so you have to be careful that it doesn't come off, or if it does come off it's a little bit more difficult to put it back on again. So here you can see here's the valve cover gasket here. It's still attached, so we're not going to disturb that so that it's easier to put that together. So here you have the rocker arms with the keepers and the valve springs underneath there. These are the set screws to set the lash for the rockers. We're not going to touch those. So you can change the spring without loosening up the rockers. So keep that in mind. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to pull the spark plug. So we need to find where the piston is, and we need it to get it to what they call top dead center, so that if you do not do this and you release the keeper and pull the spring out, the valve could fall inside the engine. So what we want to do is rotate the engine so the piston, as you can see, is going down, so we're going to rotate the engine the other way. We're going to bring the piston all the way up until the screwdriver stops moving. Oh, it started to go back down, so we're going to raise it up. And there's a little area here where the piston is right at the top, so we're going to leave it there. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to get our rope. This rope is a little thick, but it should still work. We're going to shove it down into the spark plug hole and hopefully get it underneath the valves so that we can, it'll hold the valve up for when we go to put the spring back on. So we're going to use our screwdriver here to force it into the engine, and hopefully we get it underneath both valves. We'll have to see. Keep feeding it in until it stops. Okay, we're going to give that a try. We're going to pull that up and out of the way. So what we're going to do is we're going to push down on the rocker in order to pop the rocker off of the push rod. So here, we got it up and out of the way. So now you can see here that there's a slot inside the keeper. So we're going to compress the spring and slide that slot to the top of the valve, and it should pop it off. Now this is a UT2 engine, so you can see that there's nothing on top of the valve there. If you have a UT1 engine or a Japanese engine, there'll be a little cap on top of the exhaust valve only. So you'll need a magnet to pop that cap off before you can release the retainer. So we're going to push that down in there, pop it off. So here you can have a better view of that slot inside the keeper. Here's the old valve spring. We've opened up some new valve springs, and you can see that pressing down on that valve, it's pressing on that rope, so that's going to help us out. So we're actually going to try and, nope, we're going to leave that there. Okay. So we're going to get our keeper here. We're going to push it in there. Pops right on there. And we're all good there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put this rocker back on so that we can get it out of our way for the other valve. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull this rope out for here so I can compress that a little bit. Oops, went too far. There we go. Okay, we're back on there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pop this rocker off. We are going to force our rope back down in there again. We're going to put it onto the exhaust valve side, or the intake valve side, sorry. Okay. Hopefully we have enough on there. Again, you can see the keeper slotted just like the exhaust valve. Press the spring, pop it out. You can see that the valve is being held there. I'm going to put the old spring aside and get our other new spring. Again, we're going to press it in with our fingers, hopefully. There we go, popped it back on. Now again, we're going to pull the string out again so that we can compress the spring and push the valve in so we can get it back onto the push rod. Whoops, too far again. There we go. We're back on. So we're going to rotate the engine over. Make sure everything looks good there. Everything's good. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the spark plug. Put the spark plug back in. Always want to start the spark plug by hand first. Make sure you don't strip the threads out. So. Okay, that's tight. We're going to get our valve cover. Again, be very careful with the gasket. So when you put the valve cover on and you go to put the bolts in, you want to make sure that you don't see the gasket sticking out anywhere. If you can see the gasket, then you want to remove it again and make sure that the gasket is in place. So if that gasket's not back in place, you will leak oil out of the bottom of the valve cover. So what I do is I keep pressure on the valve cover until I get all 4 screws started. Snug one up, then you can release pressure there. Then we'll finish tightening them up. I try and snug all four to start with. Make sure that it properly seated onto the head. And then tighten them down. Okay, put your spark plug wire back on your spark plug, and your valve springs are all changed. We hope this video helped you out today. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us, and give us any comments, either good or bad, that can help us out for future videos. Good luck racing and have fun.